Just it takes, they don't wear it on their, sometimes they wear it on their sleeve, but, it takes a little conversation to get this out. And it takes a little understanding of how deeply they believe, how deeply they believe. But I think that's part of what I have found is in the success cases, they believed it so deeply.
It's really a people business, right? It's not a technology business at all, right? Or a finance business. It's a people business.
Exactly.
So welcome to the Red Chair. Today we have Mohan Iyer from SOSV. Welcome to Lisbon.
Thank you, Stefan.
IndieBio. Great to see you here. Glad you have come.
Pleasure to be here.
Wonderful. So tell me, who are you and what are you doing here?
And why am I sitting in the red chair? So I'm a general partner at a global venture fund called SOSV. We are global in the sense that largely based out of the United States, in San Francisco and New York. I'm personally based in San Francisco. And we're probably the premier deep tech fund. By deep tech, it's like there's some easy ways to think about venture capital and there's some hard ways to do it.
Mm-hmm.
So
you chose the hard way.
But part of it is the mission. The mission is really to enable entrepreneurship and innovations that drive human health and what we call planetary health. Simple. We just need to be healthy so we can surf and do other things and have a good family. And then we need to have a world that is continues to be habitable, continues to be a good place for us to live. And it apparently is, both of those are not givens anymore. And so, and we need
you can't take it for granted.
Yeah, right? And we need a lot, we believe, while there are some scaled up things showing in both areas, that just extrapolating those to the nth degree does not solve the problem.
No.
So like 100% electrification doesn't fix anything. So we have to really think about innovations in both these areas. Yes. And part of our style is to fuel very early stage entrepreneurship with world-changing ideas. So that's part of.
And how did you start? I mean, did you tell us a little bit about your career? Where did you study? How did you reach this position?
Yeah. So I grew up in India and decided at the old age of 16 to leave my family and go to the United States to study. Not sure my mom really appreciated that. But anyway, when I was 40, she told me, look, I decided to just not help you in any way. I'm thinking you'll never get there. you wouldn't get admission, you wouldn't get a financial aid, and worst of all, you'll get a visa. So I'm just going to sit back and relax and watch you struggle. Well, it turned out that I did get all of that. And so, I came to college in the United States, studied chemical engineering, and then I did bioengineering. This is in the mid-'80s now, and bioengineering or these fusion degrees, were not quite there. They're very straight. So literally, very fortunate, I think, in many ways, I would say lucky, not about hard work. I happened to get a job at the very first biotech company in the world, Genentech, so at the ground floor. Really? So basically, that drew me to California in San Francisco, Genentech. So this is the first ever drugs out of recombinant DNA technology. So essentially engineering a cell to produce a protein that we wanted.
Right.
And this is the very first start of a whole revolution. I didn't know it then. It was just a company, and it was a startup in many ways.
It was a small company.
It was it was probably it was employee 250 or 300, something like that. Yeah. And in 7 years, there was 4,000 people, and we had 3 drugs in the market. So that experience of being really a assembly line worker, but at a very new technology.
Yes.
And basically, in the manufacturing plant, making new drugs, in many ways, putting it together for the first time, if you will, the assembly line of biotech, and scaling it up was an amazing experience. And it cured me of any desire to work for large companies after that. So from there on, it was startups all the way. Then for lack of a better thing to do, I just like you, I got an MBA, went back to the East Coast, and that moved me to the broader side of things. I was very much a technical engineering scale-up person, and then I did some also like you, management consulting and some banking to sort of
which is useful.
Yeah, exactly. A lot of I read the book, so to speak. So and then I came back to the roots, which is the thing that I know how to do best is. In that time, life sciences and synthetic biology in many ways. That's what it's called now, and doing it with startups. So joined probably, over the course of now I'm running 25 years, 6 startups later. I was very much an operator. Not all of them were venture-backed companies.
And you were the founder of those?
No, many times I joined a team.
You joined the team.
Yeah, but in the very close to inception to maybe 2-3 years, and that's sort of where all my companies were.
In which kind of areas were they?
There were therapeutics, human and diagnostics, medical devices, so very much in human health.
Yes.
Startups. So all of them were in the Bay Area. During the pandemic, I was sort of thinking, I was with one of the companies at that time, and during the pandemic, as we all have done, sort of wondered what is going on, and luckily for me, SOSV, which has the premier life science early entrepreneurship incubator or accelerator called IndieBio. They invited me to just say, come and hang out with us, just hang out, because I was also feeling the lack of social, I was staying remotely at the office and working remotely. And they said, come and just be with us. And then suddenly I saw tens of companies, amazing founders. They would come and talk to me. And many of the issues they had are things that
you had seen,
I had seen before. And so what I thought was sort of common sense sort of advice, they found very, very valuable. And then, I thought to myself, this is interesting. And I was just doing this pro bono. I was just sitting there, right? And then they said, well, why don't you want to do this for a living? Yes. And I said, sure. And then a few months later, they elected me general partner. And that's
the invitation was not by chance, I imagine, right? They're like, why did you come here?
Exactly.
And it's
been great. So as an investor, I actually have much less experience as an investor.
Of course.
So certainly compared with you. So I'm sort of learning in many ways what it means to be a venture capital investor.
But you've done it yourself, right? Which is a huge advantage.
Exactly.
Yes. And so what are the areas that SOSV focuses on? And you particularly, what is your role?
So we all the general partners do both human health and planetary health. My focus is biology largely, but sometimes it gets into biochemistry and sometimes it gets into energy and electrolysis and various other things. And the 2 axes are human health. So we look at all innovations in human health, whether it's medicines or diagnostics or devices, including in some ways AI plus a technology together. We don't really look at software as a pure play, but if it's mixed with something of a deeper tech, we do look at it. And we do that also in climate. So in the climate, it's been an amazing thing for me to learn, going back to my chemical engineering roots, bioengineering roots, in some ways, thinking about really rethinking the entire means of production. We've lived for hundreds of years with a means of production of everything, food, built environment. I see you're building in your offices. Everything which is based on a petroleum economy and based on releasing carbon, really. So how can we live meaningful lives while redoing everything, right? And that's interesting for us in these developed countries. But if you think of, for example, my home, where I grew up, there's 300 million middle-class Indians and probably another 300 million middle-class Chinese, and they want everything we want.
Of course.
They want to eat the same things. They want to wear the same things.
Yes.
They want to build the same things.
Yes.
And if both of those middle classes did that, just like our parents and we did, the world.
But they're entitled to it, right? We cannot say, you cannot have these things.
Right. So if you take an example of we have like cement is a good example. We're talking about this. So we take limestone, which is a key to cement, and we take this nicely sequestered carbon sitting there naturally for billions of years, and we release it.
Yes, we release
right.
it.
So we have this company, innovative company. They have found this bacteria that's sort of in the middle of the ocean called a coccolithophore, and this bacteria naturally makes calcium because that's how the shells and other things are made for the fish. So they basically have found a bacteria that makes, limestone. And so now they can take that bacteria out and grow it outside in the lab, and they can create a big scale. And now we have limestone mining in a lab. It's an example. We have a company that, we just recently, one of the things we eat a lot of in the world is chicken. And chicken feathers are a big waste problem. I once read somewhere that if some, extraterrestrial came to visit it after we were extinct, they would find a lot more chicken bones around. They'd be wondering who on earth who lived here.
Are these creatures?
Right? And chicken feathers are essentially keratin. It's essentially the same protein as hair, similar to wool. Wool is also keratin. And so here you have this very big waste. People would actually pay you to take the waste.
Yes, of course.
And I have a company that is able to take that waste, which is a protein waste, and make it into a nice pellet, which is very similar to a polyester pellet. And they can melt spin it into a fabric or fiber, right? So the key, though, is the technology to get it to that place so that the capital equipment that's used to run polyester or the cheaper fabrics, you can put this in and have that same tensile strength and so forth. So again, young companies, innovative companies trying to reach for it. But if you can do that, you can have nice clothes for the people who want to have those clothes, but it wouldn't be made the same way. Yes. And same with food. Yes. We have the first ever FDA approval for a lab-grown meat is Upside Foods, which is one of our portfolio companies. It's also based in the Bay Area. I was fortunate enough to taste their chicken. I couldn't tell the difference. Grown in the lab. There was never actually chicken that gave that
texture and flavor.
Right.
Yes.
Right.
No, it's amazing. A lot of touch points with our Blue Fund. I mean, we pursue similar ideas and very deep tech relating to the oceans, and I'm sure we'll find some common avenues of growth in working together. What are over your career, you've seen all these companies be created, and now obviously as an investor, all these exciting prospects to change the world for the better in planetary health, but also human. What are the main characteristics that you've seen in entrepreneurs to make them succeed?
Yeah. And that's one of the privileges, I think, of being an investor. I didn't quite understand it. It's to serve a team, preferably a team, but sometimes it could be a single founder that has this just inexhaustible passion to change the world. They know a change that they want to create. Sometimes it takes me a while to believe that. That's part of the due diligence is, do I really believe that change is going to happen? But they believe it. And that's so clear. And they're going to do everything to make that change occur. And the question is, am I going to help them or not? And is this a change I believe in? Is this a change I think is good? Is it the change I think is right?
Can they do it? Right?
And can they do it? And I think that to me is a fundamental thing I find in successful entrepreneurs is it takes, they don't wear it on their, sometimes they wear it on their sleeve, but, it takes a little conversation to get this out. And it takes a little understanding of how deeply they believe, But I think that's part of what I have found is in the success cases, they believed it so deeply. It's
really a people business, right? It's not a technology business at all, right? Or a finance business. It's a people business.
Exactly.
Right?
And you're right. And execution risk is a huge part of the failure side. Sometimes it is a tech failure, and that's fine. We have to take shots on goal and to push the technology forward. But execution failure is a real big part of it. And so the team is a big deal.
So, and what were the reasons, those execution failures or other types of failures that you've seen that are more common that you've seen throughout your life from the other prism?
Yeah, it is sort
of... What should
of
people
like
avoid? Let's put it this way, right? If you're an entrepreneur, what should they avoid as entrepreneurs? What are the key mistakes that need to be avoided?
Again, and we're both in the early stage investors. Part of what's happening here is the team is gelling, right? And so, for example, the co-founder relationships is a very key factor that I think about. And sometimes, let's say I'm a scientist founder. I've never really run a company. And that's, by the way, our target. We would love to have somebody like that who knows this thing better than anybody else in the world.
Yes.
I can't teach an MBA grad this thing.
They don't want to know either.
Exactly. We both can do that. We both know this. So, but they are drawn to certain types of people that they become co-founders. And it seems like it makes sense. But when you pressure test this relationship over time, it frays. It's not the judgment calls made about the complementarity and the synergies are not. That's kind of what we see. Now, it's very difficult to pick this up. Like, it's not obvious to even me or whatever, but you can start to see in sort of 3, 4, 5 months, what the patterns look like. And that's one of the things we like about IndieBio and, in our programs is that it's a fairly intensive. We provide an investment, we set them on to clear milestones. And then we, my team, for example, in San Francisco, 8 amazing people, we just go on to sit with the company.
Yeah.
And sit through tough meetings of every kind.
Yes.
And help the company figure out what they want to do. It's not like a curriculum or a program, but it's
watching the relationship develop at the same time, right?
And very quickly we can see, I think it's time to make its change, or, well, you're fine, but you really need this other type of person, that sort of thing. But I would say that, sadly, it is, like you said, a human business. But the other side of the human business coin is humans sometimes don't get along.
Happens quite often.
Exactly.
And what are the things, once things are up and running, what are the big problems that arise in startups in addition to running out of money?
Yeah. Well, in these sectors that we've chosen to invest in, there is definitely a mid-stage scale-up hurdle. So like in a therapeutics company, in order to do a proper human clinical trial, you probably need $20, $30 million in order to do that. And you can't do it on your whole technology. Let's say you have a platform and you have to pick the first drug. It's a tough decision. What is the first indication? What is the first drug? Because if that fails, the whole thing is now under shadow. And that decision is just a human decision. Well, it's a thoughtful decision. So first you decide that. And then each one of those is about $20, $30 million. And it's kind of looks like a binary result.
Yeah.
Right? Same with climate. So like I told you about this little pellet. Well, that's good. One of the things that we liked about Bloom Labs in this case is that they can pop it into the capital equipment that's already out there. But many climate startups we find are the technology is so innovative that there is no infrastructure to build it out, and they have to build that out. They have to build it out.
Yes.
There's nobody, and that is again $20, $30, $50 million chunk.
Yes.
That to me is the big challenge we face. Is who are the investors?
Yeah. It's capital intensive, right?
Yeah.
And it can go terribly wrong.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
In addition to being delayed and so on.
And the issue is that, like if you say to me, I need to build a $10 million manufacturing plant, and I ask you, well, what risk did you reduce when you spent the 10? Not so clear. Which is different than a $1 million experiment in a laboratory where the technology is seen to work. Now, you said it would need to meet the spec. Now it's met the spec. You've de-risked it, and you only took $1 million or $2 million to do it. Whereas you spent this.
The scale up. Sometimes you need to actually to produce it at scale to actually face the issues of scaling up some technology. You need to actually scale to actually test it more than the lab. So it's something that we see quite often as well, and we're building a few of those here in Portugal.
Great.
in our Blue Fund, which I'll share with you. And, you're in Europe, you are US investors. The US obviously has an incredible track record, but now you're starting to get to know European entrepreneurs and hopefully soon Portuguese entrepreneurs as well. Do you see differences? Do you see similarities? What do you see as the potential for European founders in the deep tech space?
Yeah, so this visit was really about me learning about it. I was actually in Barcelona meeting with the founders and innovators. The one thing that I'm absolutely clear about is that the talent is amazing. There's no difference in the European talent than what I'm seeing in the US. In fact, before the pandemic, in this sort of accelerator, we required everybody to be physically in San Francisco because we felt there was some magic about San Francisco and Silicon Valley. Absolutely. Nothing like that. But the pandemic disrupted us. Yes. We couldn't quite do that. But it also opened us up. Now we can do a hybrid program. And in fact, we've been attracting world talent to do this. And they do come to San Francisco for a couple of weeks and some intense times. But I would say that we're able to serve global entrepreneurs. So the talent is amazing. There is perhaps some cultural things about, for example, I think you and I know what we talk about when we talk about venture speed. And it has a different meaning. I'm finding when I'm walking around the streets of Lisbon. Yes. I mean, time goes slower in different places.
Yes. The sense of urgency, I'd say, right?
Yeah,
get things done immediately.
Right. So there are. So I think talent is there. The ideas are there. Capital actually is what they need, but more important than capital, perhaps, is this sense of what it takes to attract global venture capital. What are global venture capital standards that make you attractive? And it's a little bit more subtle. Yes. And
I think that you see that particularly on the science-led companies. Of course, on the tech side, on the software, I think the exposure to the US style VC ecosystem has been so large over the last 2 decades that you don't see that difference as much. But certainly in scientific-led, sort of R&D-led companies where people are more not so used to the VC modus operandi, you certainly see that there's still this lack of awareness of the speed of execution, the demands, and sort of the commitment.
Exactly.
But we'll get there.
Yeah, that's right. And there's another, I guess related, you're absolutely right about the science side. There's a sense of wanting to do it right and perfect. Right. So that means I just need to get this another 6 months to do this experiment before I even tell you about it, because I'm too shy to tell you something at 75%.
It's a bit of a science background thing also, right? You have to do things correctly and so on. And in VC, you have to try things quickly, try it out, and break things and do it again and so on.
Exactly. Fast fail is harder for people to grab here.
Very hard.
And it's almost like they want to be
scientists
perfect.
and from engineers.
Engineers,
they're used to it, but say PhDs in science, there's like, I can't get this wrong.
And it's more about even feeling free to talk about it so that we can troubleshoot or help. It's more like it's an aiming at perfection, but in some sense running out of money before you do that.
Exactly. Or not even knowing if it's useful for the customers.
Exactly.
Right?
Customer. Exactly.
What customers?
What customers?
Very good. Well, Mohan, it was great to have you here at our Red Chair. Thank you for coming to IndieCo, and looking forward to doing a lot of stuff together.
Indeed. Very comfortable chairs, I have to say, Stefan. Good. Thank you very much for having me. Pleasure to be here.
Thank you. See you another time.
Yeah. Take care.
Bye-bye.
Yeah.